Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Welcome to Mondays with Myrt, where we talk about pretty much anything and everything that's come across our Genia desks in the last 2 weeks since last we met. Let's see who's out there. Got all kinds of folks. Valerie's saying, it's sunny. That's probably the last time until March that you can say that, Valerie. Hi, Cindy. Windy and chilly. We're kind of rainy and chilly, but that's the Pacific Northwest for you. Let's see what else we've got. Hipperton. Interesting. I'm doing this backwards, so I'm getting the tail end of the story, Hillary. Chill in the air. Yeah, it must be fall, Ellen. Hi, Kathleen. That's the name of your town. Boring. I don't think it's boring if you live there, dear. I love it. Hi, Claire. Good to see you. Not much better weather there. Remember to click the link to join the panel in our panelist instant message area over on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. And Barbara is saying in California, in Berkeley, it's still cold. Might get up to 69, a little blue. Yeah, let me go to the top. I've tried to say everybody's name. Hi, Gwen. And there is Sherry. Thank you, Sherry, for being over there on the YouTube side. You know, those rabble rousers, as I say, that you really got them under your thumb, dear, and we appreciate you. And Frank's here. Thank you for making the translation or to indicate not only Celsius, but Fahrenheit. And Hillary's saying, getting darker earlier. But your clock's already changed. That's interesting. We don't fall back for a little while now. We either ought to all be off of daylight savings time or all on it and not all this staggering. It drives me nuts. Anyway, hi, Bobby Christensen. And there's a conversation going on with Gwen and Hillary about Rydale. Interesting. Okay, and Randy's here in the wings. Just a minute, we'll be bringing them all up on the panel. You know, I flew in with Mr. Myrt and we went straight to Birmingham. And so I don't have the feel that you all have with York and Richmond, etc. All interesting. It's so good to see where you all are from. And old Myrt here wants to apologize. I finally had a chance to listen to last week's show. And you'll recall we had a lot of double or echoey soundy things from old Myrt. And that was a bit of a problem that was on several of the StreamYard servers. It was caused by the host or affected the host. And so the audio quality on a lot of Last Mondays with Myrt was a mess. So my hat's off to Jill Morelli and everybody who kept the ball rolling as I would try to duck out and come back in and hope that it would sound better. Oh my gosh. You know, but it's pretty cool that we have this technology so that people from all over the world can get together and talk. All right, let's, Frank, would you start bringing the panelists up? Frank's our host today because Hillary is, who can also be a host, she and I are doing book club today. And we're really getting into the meaty part of Albion Seed. There's a lot of glare in this room today. And if Randy, who shares links, could go in and share the link to the article over on Substack. That's where you'll get the details. Let me share my screen on that one. On what it is we're doing with book club. So book club is tackling David Hackett Fisher's book, Albion Seed, Four British Folkways in America, and there's a 45-minute break after Mondays with Myrt, and then there's book club. And this is the chapter that we're tackling, that migration pattern from the East Anglia area to Massachusetts in the early 1600s. And one thing I wanted to mention about book club, I know I'm droning on and on, but book club is really a matter of switching gears. Usually we talk about how to do genealogy research or how to use AI or things along that line, but we are studying social history. And by doing that, we get ourselves out of our 21st century mindset where we're accustomed to cell phones and microwaves and a transatlantic flight is no big deal. People are bopping on airplanes left and right. And, life was very different for our ancestors. And for our ancestors in the 1800s, things were very different from their progenitors in the 1700s and the 1600s. And we're going to speak specifically about marriage practices, clothing, attitudes about education and rearing children, how their governments were organized. And those are just some of the folkways, British folkways, that were known to exist back in the old world that carried over in the new world. It isn't like they just moved to the North American continent and decided to take up clogging. That wasn't in their culture, But the way that they felt about women's rights or who could speak at church or whatever remained the same. And they and so we're going to have a very interesting book club. Now, on that, you will also see we have a copy over there of the homework. It's 12 pages, just happens to be 12 pages. And let me bring it up and show it to you. And Hillary is the one who suggested we use this background. It's a PDF file, so my page 5 will be your page 5. And Christine Charbrough is the one who is the point person, the panelist that has ancestors in this East Anglia group. And what I've done in the first couple of pages is remind you of our schedule, talk about which of the folkways we will be discussing. Some of this is copied from, this particular chart was copied from when we did the study group. It was many years ago that we hosted a series on this. And it's interesting, I always forget to tell people that the term folkways is something that the author of the book we're studying cites from William Graham Summer, who is the author of a book called Folkways, a study of sociological importance of manners. Oh, wait, that's a mouthful. But anyway, then we talk about who's who and what roles we play. And then we begin our homework. And since Christine is the point person, her homework goes first. You will see that homework there's Hillary's, and there's a reason for that census record there. You will see that the panelists have hit it out of the ballpark. I'm really I'm always in awe of our panelists. We get by with a lot of help from our friends. Anyway, so that's what's up. So let's see how our panelists are doing today. Randy, good to see you. Let's hear your mic. Be sure you're good. Of course you're good.
Mike is good.
Mike is good. All right. Frank, hi.
Hi.
Okay. And Jill, thanks for joining us. I hope you were here when I was giving you kudos. Did you hear that part?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I
it was, I mean, don't worry about it. That's what
you
we're here
worked
for.
on it beautifully. You did. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then Ellen's here. We're going to be talking with her. And let's see if your mic's working,
Well,
Hillary.
good morning.
Okay, good. And Hillary's here. Now,
Yeah.
Hillary, I know you were away, which was incredible that you submitted homework for book club because you're one of the panelists over there. Um, are you home now yet?
Yeah, we travelled back from York this morning.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is why I was saying about we travelled back from York. Not a bad journey, better than last week. Last week was a nightmare trying to even get onto the main road from where we live, but that's another story.
Was that weather related?
No, it was related to. I think it was related to something that threw out the traffic lights near where we
Oh,
live. I think it was all to do with there was some issue with Amazon server or something on the Monday.
technology and again,
It caused an awful lot of problems in places.
these are these are not the problems our ancestors encountered.
No.
So I want to. We do have a question of the week, but right now, for the fun of it, I'd like to bring a conversation that we had in the green room into the recording. We were talking about how I think it was Ellen that your grandmother did a lot of cooking and canning.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the food storage that your grandmother did.
I was always amazed that my grandmother, when it was, because she had 7 children, she canned oodles of things. And so, but even when she was retired and there was just her and my grandpa, it would be like she had 2 freezers and she had a full pantry with canning peaches and all sorts of things. And just for these 2 people, and it was amazing, But
It's really hard to quit cooking humongous meals. Like I had to buy 2 cookbooks, cooking for 2, when we moved here, because before that, at least all my children and grandchildren were around and they'd come for dinner or the boys would stop by for extra food. I don't know, teenage boys, just they're always hungry. But it was a jolt to be in a situation where it's just 2 of us to cook for. And Randy, right now you're cooking for 1. But do you have recollections of a grandma that with a large pantry? No.
No, not at all. No. In my time, they were all city folk. And in my mother's time, they were all city folk.
Okay. That's true. They were, because we know you so many years and read your blog posts and we know how things go. My dad would go on he loved it when I take him up on Queen Anne Hill, and I'd go almost every week and take him up, and he'd show me again the 2 rental houses they lived in, and then over on Wheeler, the house that his dad finally could buy a house for the family. But there were places along the way where he'd say that place was the grocer. So the green grocer is what he called it. And that meant they were city folk. They didn't have they did have a victory garden during World War II. Did anybody have recollection of a victory garden? Anybody out there on the YouTube side?
In my family, my mother had the brownest of thumbs, but she still, however, her sister-in-law who lived next door had a huge garden and shared her produce. And my mother canned a lot, actually. I remember I must have been maybe 10 or 12 going down into the basement, and we had a large kind of closet down there, and the cans of peaches. Ellen, yes, I don't know why I remember peaches and nothing else, but I remember the cans of peaches. And mind you, peaches were not grown natively in Iowa. So
not where I live either.
Right, I don't know where she got these peaches, but the little cans of peaches. But unfortunately, at some point, probably in the 50s, after advertising came in with TV dinners and all that sort of stuff, is that she stopped. And so I remember going down there like when I was 20, and those same peaches were lined up.
Oh my gosh.
You reminded me, my grandma had a cellar too. It was like a dungeon with cobwebs and
Right, right.
Well, they could keep, they could have a root cellar where, and you had to, I learned this, I didn't have that kind of a root cellar, but I read about them. You had to keep the apples somewhere else because the apples give off a gas that prematurely ages other things. So you didn't want the apples in there. You wanted them in a separate place. But amazing. What about you, Hillary? Were your people city folk or country folk or hybrid? What was it like?
My family on both my grandparents' family lived on not in the city. They lived on what would have been the outskirts of the city, which would have been villages. My grandparents on my dad's side, they still had an air raid shelter, a concrete air raid shelter in their back garden, right up until when the house was finally sold by my uncle. So they had a quite different, I mean, they had outside toilets. Even when I was a child, they had an outside toilet. So they didn't have an inside toilet. They did have an inside bath, but they didn't have an inside toilet. My grandmother used to make her own pies on a plate. She had plate pies, apple pies, and things like that. I can remember doing that. But I can also remember her having an iron that she'd plug into the light socket rather than a lower down socket, because that was probably where most of their sockets were. It was they were living
those
in
things hanging down. They'd hang down.
They were living in a pre-war house, so there were certain things they wouldn't have had as a norm. They would live because they lived on the edge of the city. Both my parents, they didn't get evacuated, but had my dad lived not that far away from where he did, he might have got evacuated because of the bombing that happened during the Second World War.
During the Second World War. You know, I can't imagine. We study any military thing constantly, any movie that comes out. We re-watch movies because Mr. Myrt's a military history guy, and I cannot imagine the bombing that went on in England. London was just, I don't even know how it survived. I don't know how anybody survives on either side. Okay, so Frank, tell me about food history in your family. Were your people city folk or country folk or what?
We were always country folk. I'm the first generation that is city folk.
Ah, okay.
Actually, we can't in a lot of things, especially since I'm from the GDR.
Okay.
So, East Germany.
German Democrat, yeah, Republic.
The German Democratic Republic.
Yeah.
And we can't in a lot of things. But as I told in the private chat already, we didn't use mason jars. We used the back ones. And if you click on the link, you see the difference.
Yes. All right. There's a link that he's given me. All right. I'll pull it up. And, oh, yeah. Those are we still have those. And let me share my screen. Something like that with the, how many of you saw these kind? Yes. I've seen this. I've actually used this to can, if it was something special, like a special blackberry jam or something. We have a lot of wild blackberries still up here on the island. And for a gift, I would use this kind of a canning situation. This is what it was before we had the ball canning jars with the lids. Why is my phone blowing up? Let me turn off. It's bugging me. I can't multitask. Anybody else on the panel seen this kind of a jar, more or less, with a rubber seal?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so
so
one. Yeah, we used to have kilner ones in England.
Okay, cool.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's see what's happening on the YouTube side. Thanks for that link, Frank. Randy,
You're welcome.
let's see. Did I get everybody in there? Yeah. But let me go back to comments. Let's see. I'm not hearing background noise, so I think we're okay. Boy, that
I
was
just
awful.
stopped it.
Okay. So Kathleen is saying she used those for spices when she lived in Hamburg. That's
Yep.
pretty cool. That's very cool. And Cindy has said, I've seen that kind of jar. There's still many canners in her area. And I will can jam because it's so much tastier. You know, when you have homemade jam, it really is good. And Barbara is saying the early ball jars used the rubber seal with a spring-loaded wire, maybe not exactly like that metal, but sometimes it was hooked onto the side, yeah, to hold the glass lids down. And so thank you for that, Barbara. Let's see. Somebody is saying, when my kids were small, I would make a year's worth of jam in the summer. Yeah, save it in the season thereof. And my kids would help until the jam started spitting at them. Okay, there's a story about that. Okay, let's see what else. Let me go back here. Oh, and then Claire's saying she missed out on having grandmothers. They were gone before she was born. You know, my younger sister Sharon, frequently when we're having discussions, what crops up is the fact that she's much younger and doesn't remember, or the grandparent that I'm thinking of and talking about isn't part of her recollection at all because they had passed on. Valerie is saying, my grandmother's sister had a large pantry on her farm. Aunt Tina did a lot of canning. I was little and got lost in the pantry room. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's see what else. All right. My mom would buy a lug of peaches to put up. Yeah. That's what they call it. I've got to put up the peaches. How about jelly, where they would be in a jelly jar with a layer of paraffin wax on top to seal it?
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother would go in Puyallup, had a root cellar and also did jam that way and or jelly. And it was put in a cupboard that Grandpa built that had instead it was just deep enough to accommodate a jelly jar, not a very tall one. And so it's only about 5 inches deep. And it had a door that, like a window pane kind of a door. But instead of glass, it was some kind of screening, like to keep the little bugs out or something. I don't know. Bill says, my great-grandmother was a home builder. Wow. Every home in neighborhood she developed were large enough for victory gardens. Now, what is a victory garden? Anybody want to jump in and explain what that was? Okay.
World War I and World War II, you turned your front yards into produce.
Yes. Now homeowners associations
Don't
in
allow it.
neighborhoods would not permit that. But it actually came down from the White House.
Ah.
Yeah. Please, everybody, grow your own.
I remember people having potatoes in their front yard, but I thought that was to keep the weeds down first.
Well,
Weeds,
and then
potatoes always look great because they're so leafy and they cover so much.
They're beautiful.
They are beautiful.
Okay, let's see what my mom would talk all the time about her victory garden. They also raised rabbits. She and her sister could name one of the rabbits, and then that one would not become dinner. I have never had rabbit stew. But I just didn't grow up in the country. I can remember TV dinners at Grandma Myrtle's house on TV trays, watching Lawrence Welk on Sunday night. I didn't understand the champagne bubbles because my parents were teetotalers, but there was something about anyway, it was a thing. And of course the TV was way across the room with a little teeny tiny, I think my first computer monitor had a bigger monitor than our TVs had in the 50s. Okay, let's see. Okay, my great grandma was a Swedish chef for a doctor's big family. They had about 40 people in an extended family for family meals, but would buy Kringle. So tell me what the heck Kringle is in Racine, Wisconsin. Anybody know what Kringle? I know of Kris Kringle, the person.
No, it's a pastry.
Kind of pastry.
Yeah,
okay.
With a fruit filling usually, I think.
Okay, interesting. So tell me about Piggly Wiggly, Brandy.
It was a great store. I don't know how big it was. Nowhere near as big as what we have now. More like a 7-Eleven, if that.
Yeah.
But it was the store, and everybody in the neighborhood from probably 6 or 8 blocks all around, went there.
Mm-hmm.
And drugstore next door had an ice cream fountain, and the barber on the other side was my barber for 20 some years. And then it closed, and a Safeway opened on the other side of our house. So
yeah,
but my mother went every day to the store. That's just what they did. We had an ice box. We didn't have a fridge, I don't know, until the 50s probably, if that.
So let's talk about an ice box and the Iceman cometh. Well, we don't have to discuss that, but anyway.
Well, let's discuss the Iceman cometh, because my grandfather ran the ice delivery system and harvesting system in the small town where I lived.
Well, tell us about it. So before we had chemical and electric refrigeration,
we had ice.
We had ice, even
so
in
I
the
lived
summer.
In northern Iowa, and my father told me that he would go out with Grandpa, and they would harvest the ice in a lake that was just north, in just big blocks of ice, and they would haul that via the horse and the wagon. This is when ice got to be like 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep. Doesn't get that deep anymore. And he'd haul it to the ice facility, of which I've seen pictures of. It was a big 2-story building, and they had a ramp coming down, and my dad broke his leg going down the ramp one time. And they would put straw in between the layers of ice, and he bought this in the early 1900s, about 1910, 1912, something like that. But in 1937, he shut it down. I actually have a postcard of Main Street of my small town, and it has a wagon and a horse-drawn wagon that's been backed into a parking space. There's cars around it, and there's a big ice sign on the side of the truck or the wagon. And so I believe that that's my grandfather's.
I think that is cool. So if you watch,
and so he would deliver it. They'd break it down. They'd deliver it on a regular schedule.
Good.
You'd have an ice box in your kitchen, probably, and it would have a pan on the underside that would collect the melted water. The water, you would have to dump that every day, probably, to keep, so you'd always have capacity for the rest of the melt. You'd stick the ice in there, and then that would keep your food cold.
Totally get this. Some of the ice boxes were pressed up against the wall, an exterior wall, where there was a door that the iceman could open and then open a panel and put the ice in the actual ice box.
Oh, interesting.
Now, yeah, my dad told me about that. And he also said, there's a lot of hills in Seattle. And so they'd love to ride their bikes down the hill because it was really fast, but they would hold on to the bumper of the horse-drawn Iceman's wagon to be pulled up the backside of Queen Anne Hill, which is pretty steep in some portions. And yeah, and speaking to what Randy said about the grocery store being really tiny, or the store, there was the dry goods store where you get the flour and the oats and stuff like that. And there'd be the meat market. And somebody somewhere in comment said that their ancestor, their grandma, went to the store every day. And it's because you couldn't keep things very cold. And your capacity of these ice boxes was, I mean, if you've seen them in antique stores where you can buy a wooden ice box would have several opening doors to open, but maybe keep your eggs cool if you didn't keep them pickled. Oh my! Or in the I don't know what that was. They kept them in a crock, and it had glistening looking stuff around. It was horrible to imagine, but I give up. Anyway,
did you guys have milk chutes?
No, tell me what that is.
So where I live, they used to have a little door at the back door, and that when you had milk delivery, the milkman would open the little door and put your milk in, and then you had a door
milk delivery.
I didn't know if that was just a Canadian thing or.
We did have that. We had a back porch on our house on 55th Northeast in Seattle, and it was a small metal insulated box where you'd get the glass jars that had the cream on top, the glass bottles of milk, and the tokens? Little thing you pulled up, yeah. And sometimes cottage cheese would come that way, and cream cheese, not cream cheese, but sour cream, but mostly milk.
My dad was a milkman.
Yeah, I now understand what you're saying. It just didn't register at first. Anybody else have milk cartons and out back?
We had milk deliveries as well. And in fact, I had milk deliveries in the 70s in Denver, Colorado. I think you can still get milk deliveries here in Seattle. It's particularly helpful if you're a working mom with small children and having cheese delivered and milk delivered and that sort of thing. Now there's DoorDash, so I'm not sure it's quite as important. But nevertheless, it was a thing that I certainly could participate in and did participate in when I was a working mom.
Mm-hmm. So apparently you're right. King County, Washington, you can still get milk deliveries. Claire said they had milk deliveries in Australia in the 1980s. When my children were little, so that would be in the 70s, we had milk deliveries, which helped because, somebody said she bought milk from the neighbor with cows, and we'd watch TV and shake cream for butter. That's cool. It was always said that if my mother, as a little toddler, was missing, she'd be out back by the butter churn, sticking her finger in to eat some of the butter. Oh my gosh. Aurora, Colorado, milk deliveries in the 2000s. Oh, geez, the world's greatest neighbor. That explains a lot. She has a scar over her left eye from falling on that milk box. Yeah. Let's see. Glass milk bottles. Oh, yeah.
We got glass milk bottles delivered up until not long ago.
Really?
Yeah, because and the only reason we don't have it delivered now is because we don't have the milk anymore. But our neighbours, they still get their milk delivered.
Oh wow!
And there are still some delivery companies and that. So
yeah. All right. So there's a couple more things, and then we'll get to our actual question for today, which this conversation should be fodder for telling your personal history, because I mean, my grandkids ask me if we took a horse and buggy to go to church on Sunday. They have no concept of what we actually experienced. Let's see. Maria's saying they had a cool storage area in the basement where they would store bags and bags of potatoes. It was cool and smelled and was dark and scary for when it was her turn to go get potatoes for dinner. And you know, Maria, when you think about the wars and the privations in Europe and England, and Ireland, well, think of the potato famine. Potato is a basic in food commodity. Incredible. Let's see. One of the milkman stores here in the city, and tell me about that, Randy or Frank.
Yeah, I work for the local history bureau.
Mm-hmm.
So for historic monuments, buildings, etc.
Yeah,
And
right.
I had to research one building where we were sure that it may be from historical value. And we simply thought it may be from the 1970s. Yeah, it was from the 1930s. And was one of the first one with a flat roof. Built especially for one of the largest milkman companies around. And is unchanged to this day from the outside.
That's pretty interesting. Now, in a snowy part of the world, I can't imagine a flat roof because you want to have a pitched roof so the snow can slide off. Sometimes if it snows a lot, you have to get up there and help the snow do its thing to get off the roof. Yeah, all of these topics are already in Valerie's mom's history, or to still write about in my mom's books, she says. I'm still in the 1940s since I skipped to do some of her history in the 80s and 2005. Yes, so our question of the week, and there's so many comments. I want to hear about in a personal history. Maria, you need to tell the story of what happened that precipitated the fall on the milk car delivery thingamabob. But our question of this week is, what is it? Have you composed your personal history? Now, while you're thinking about that and giving me ideas, like what are the top 5 things you would like that you know need to belong in your personal history, I'm going to send the link to the Connie Knox interview that was supposed to be part of last sessions. Let me put this here. There we go. That's the wrong link. You will recall that I referred to meeting with Connie Knox. Let me come back here. Let me get the link to it. Oh, copy it. And I want to give you this link while you're thinking, and I want to be sure that you get that. The reason that I wanted you to get to know Connie Knox, if you don't already know her, is I'm not going to be here forever. And these wonderful panelists we're all going to be rocking in our rocking chairs somewhere in a, old folks home eventually. And she's at least decades younger than I am. Connie is a smart young whippersnapper, and she does multiple videos in a week. And the best I could do was come up with 2, since last we met, 2 short subject videos that had to do with the fact that new things coming down the pike. And I want you, I recognize that I am not focused on that, on what is the latest, greatest, and immediately getting the word out. But Connie is, and so I would like you to follow her. So that's that YouTube link that you see there at the 9:38 a.m. position. Definitely catch that. A number of you, I think about 100 of you, have already seen it. And that was the one that I was trying to show us last week. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is MyHeritage came up with a whole genome sequencing announcement. Okay, so what they're doing is it's the start of our having even more information available to us in the DNA world. Yeah, there we go. So I would like you to follow that, or it's just a very short subject, mini Myrt. All right, so okay, so to hit this part, to get going on this topic and about writing our personal histories, Gwen, our de facto remote member of the panel, said many genealogy societies have writers groups, and she's attended many of them and would like to know the best and cheapest way to add audio to a slideshow. There's a free version over there on Adobe where you can do that. Go ahead.
Zoom, 40 minutes free. Why learn something new? You know, you're already using Zoom, use Zoom.
Yeah.
And then you can post it anywhere. So
I use Wondershare for all my videos, and it's free.
Okay, put the link into Wondershare.
Oh, okay.
And put it in the private chat, and then I'll send it over to everybody. And I'll bring it up for brand recognition. So that's a great idea. Is you've got your slide deck already, Gwen, your slideshow with whatever pictures you're using that prompt the storytelling of an ancestor, or in your case, you, I hope. I'd like to see you in your little Black Mary Janes on Easter morning or whatever, you know, when your mama dressed you up, and did you have to have wear white gloves, and you were 5 years old and you couldn't move because you weren't to get your dress dirty or your gloves dirty until after church. And, you know, I'm sure that other religious special events, from other religious organizations, I think our mothers and our grandmothers did that to us. Valerie's saying you could insert an MP3 into a PowerPoint slideshow easily, and the instructions are on Google. This is true. You'd have to get your timing right. And I agree that it's very easy to use some of these tools to get the job done. One of the things that's going to be happening with Mr. Myrt, he doesn't know it yet. We got to start getting his story down. And one of his siblings is gone. He died many years ago, but his sister's still alive. And my plan is to get Mr. Myrt and his sister in a Zoom, and then do the slideshow, or I could do it here in StreamYard. She's in Ohio, he's here, and get each of them with their recollections of that day or that event. Even if I did 5 of them, you know, five little short, in just one photo for each one, it will probably be hilarious, because when those two get together, they're hilarious together.
I think we've given a lot of ideas about how to get it recorded. I'd like to hear ideas about how you best distribute it. Because what I see happening is that a lot of people will work on their family history. They'll deliver it to their nieces and nephews with a clippy on the top. And within 2 generations, it's gone. And so, because they throw it away, because they don't know what it is or care or anything. They're disassociated from it. And so my recommendation to people is to make sure it gets into a public place, preferably curated, but videos might not be that way. And so where do you put them to be able to have some sense of preservation beyond the nieces and nephews that give it a delete, delete, delete?
You know, one of the most valuable parts of the Library of Congress's American Memories Project are the recordings they have of somebody explaining how to butcher a hog. Like, I don't have to do that, but it gives me a picture of what okay, that was a bad example.
Threshing.
Yeah,
Threshing.
threshing, yes,
Threshing wheat.
chaff and grain and all that stuff.
Right.
Or a quilting thing, a quilting bee, and how their grandmother used to do something, or because it was a eyewitness report, not in my family at all, but it helps me understand because my people did that thing. You know, and so we have an eyewitness report on the process. So the fact that you put it in the public arena will be important for future generations. Yeah. So what is the question about being a U.S. citizen to look at the Library of Congress? I think that's an open website. Or is Germany not permitting you to look at it? Frank, what was this?
I just wrote. You said just a couple of minutes ago that that the Library of Congress is hosting a project, and I simply wanted to add that if you're not a U.S. citizen, so you may not be entitled to use that service, ask the Internet Archive because they probably will host it. To put it online.
What are we talking about?
Okay. So I wasn't necessarily saying put it on the U.S. On the American Memories. I didn't finish my thought.
Okay.
What I was saying was there's value in putting it in the public arena, but I didn't define what the public arena was. And now I understand your logic, and you're right on task there. And because, like in Australia, Trove is accepting video clips and blog posts, etc., from recognized genealogy content producers. They're archiving their work because it's that slice of life view that's getting archived at Trove, which is their like their Library of Congress or archive. So Internet Archives is definitely, they will take your film clips. They will take your video clips. You need to let, if it's on your blog, if you have a blog, you need to tell the Internet Archive to spider your blog. If you have a YouTube channel or a podcast, you need to tell Internet Archive and give them a copy. So Valerie's saying her son, you know, I feel like I know your son after all these years hearing about him and his dogs and that you babysit the dog. And yeah, he knows to donate your work to the County Historical Society Museum whenever he gets old, because we're not aging, are we, Valerie? Yeah, and the Internet Archive will also take financial contributions. Yes. That was quite a thing to meet the gentleman behind that. You know what his lapel pin is? When he came to Roots Tech, he was like maybe third year into Roots Tech. He was a keynote. His lapel pin is not an American flag. It's a little, you remember 45 Records had a bigger opening in the middle, but if you had to play them on a stereo with just a spindle, a thin spindle, they had those little plastic inserts.
Yep.
That's what his lapel pin is. And he wears it all the time. I've seen it ever since then. I mean, I didn't know him beforehand, but whenever I've seen pictures of him, he still wears it. I think it's the same jacket too, but anyway, I don't think he wears his jacket too frequently. Yeah. All right. More input. Let's see. Terrific question. I think it's super important to create a platform independent form that can be published to sites like the Internet Archives. Just what we're talking about, Barbara, right on. Let's see. Okay, so talk to me about this, Randy. This is a great idea. Narrating silent home movies in Zoom.
Yeah, I have 50 home movies that I've done with Forever, digitized. So
Mm-hmm.
I have them. They're all like 5 minutes. And so, and some are precious. My wedding, my parents' wedding. I have a videotape from my New England cousins about the family in the 1930s, but it's silent. And so narrating those would greatly enhance the value of them for a family member.
I have similar.
I need them to do it. Yeah.
I have 27.
That's incredible. My dad did a similar thing with the technology available at his point in time. He ran the 8mm through his old 8mm camera. This had to be in the 70s, and had set up his video camera next to him so that whenever video cameras came out, so it was zoomed in on the picture on the screen in the living room, but it was next to him so it could pick up his voice and he would tell the story.
Wow.
And so now I have his yeah. Go ahead, Frank, you're next.
Randy, you even could do that with pictures, with articles, etc. Because just writing notes somewhere under or by a picture doesn't tell always the whole story. But hearing it from a relative, even a deceased one, would help tremendously to bring the stories across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Family Search has the Memories app.
Yep.
On your phone, and you can talk into it about a picture.
So you will be interested to hear about the Vivid-Pix, P-I-X, memory station, and how it is specifically designed for let's focus on this image and record our recollections of that image. That's the system we're going to use with Mr. Myrt and his sister. But I'm going to also, I got to do it in Zoom so I can get it on a YouTube channel and get it out there. Because I have a few followers over there on YouTube. Not as many as I used to. But I actually have more. Please subscribe, hit the like button, all that stuff. I actually have more people viewing than subscribe. Please do subscribe because I get extra benefits as a content producer if you do that. And Sherry's saying, yes, don't forget to go over to DearMYRTLE's Substack over on Substack. That's where you will, that's my, there's a persona profile and there's a publication over there, and that's where I publish my blog posts and announcements about upcoming meetings. Yes, and also click the like button. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so all right, what are the 5 things you know you want to have in your personal history? Let's start with Hillary. Even just 1 or 2.
I want to talk about childhood mainly because it's those sorts of things, the things that have changed since my childhood.
In your life.
Only I will be able to, things I will only be able to remember. My son will have had a completely different childhood to what I had because so many things have changed and been introduced since then. You know, I can remember things that some people, that even some people my age may not have experienced. It depends, like with my grandparents and things, how they lived was quite different from how we lived, and I should put that comparison in, I think.
I love that idea. All right, this is the content portion. We figured out, all right, we know we want to use technology. We know we need to get it out there, and we've come up with Internet Archive and YouTube as places to put it where it's publicly available. And now we're talking about the content that we know Hillary wants to include. What do you want to include, Ellen? What do you want to include?
I want to include the profiles that I've worked on with all of my ancestors, but I also want to preserve the stories that my dad used to tell around the table, or the things that happened to us in our childhood. And so as I come across those, or I remember those, like if I tweak a memory today about the milk chute, and my dad being a milkman, I can write the story of that, because it's different than just the names and dates, and so I want to write the stories, right? That's what I care about more.
And I think it's okay to write that story, and it's not in chronological order. When I was 2 and now I am 3.
Yeah.
As it comes to you, do it then. If you did that, as opposed to worrying about chronological order, or, were we in the blue house or were we in the yellow house at that point? Just tell the story. And you'll be surprised once you sit down and do it. And I mean, you could record it.
Well, and that's another thing, is that I'm making my book in what they call artisan, and it's a forever product, but you can also have QR codes in there. So if I make a video, I can put that QR in my book, and then they can go into the video, that I've created too. So.
Yes, and there are QR code generators out there that will do it for you for free, just like we have. Well, that's a whole nother topic. I want to stay on this topic. All right, I like that idea. Jill, what is at least one of the 5 things that you know must be there in your personal history?
Well, I'm going to cheat and do 2. One is because we've moved in so many different places. I kind of want to get the chronology of when we moved and where we lived, if nothing else, so that they'll know where to find me if they need to find the 2000 census kind of thing. So because we've just moved so much, that then ties in a lot to my work history as well, which will sound boring, but yes, it probably is, but it needs to get down there. And the other thing, I'm resonate really well with Hillary's statement about my childhood being so different than my daughter's, that is so different from my grandchildren's. Being, the mother kind of kicks you out of the house at 9 o'clock in the morning on a sunny day, and you might come back before dark, maybe. So those kinds of things were quite different than what was experienced. But I'm in the process right now, just this week, I've been compiling articles that I've written that are proof arguments and case studies and that sort of thing, so that I can show why I decided on certain ancestors being there and being in my tree. But I'm cutting out all the easy stuff. I'm not including any of that. So I've got 1 volume for my Danes and Swedes. I've got another one for my Germans. But just this week, I decided, there's too many stories. And so I'm going to have a 3rd volume that's just going to be stories. And my brother contributed snippets, just 2 or 3 lines. I remember this about Grandpa. I remember this about Grandpa. And just snippets that are discombobulated even. And so I was really excited to see those, because he's 5 years older than me. I never knew my grandfather. He did. He was 8 when he died. I was 3. I don't remember anything before kindergarten, for heaven's sake. And so then I contacted my cousin, who's 10 years older than me and 5 years older, obviously, than my brother. She says she doesn't remember a thing. And I go, I bet that's not true. And so I suggested to her that I just interview her, because I think by interviewing, it will bring up some of those memories that she just isn't thinking are worthy of telling me about.
Yeah. Let's talk about worthy and perfectionistic approaches to writing, which can also be a block.
Good thing. Oh, absolutely.
When you said snippets, if it's just a snippet,
Mhm.
I mean, and you end the sentence in a preposition and this and that. I mean, let's just get it out. Let's get the picture, the story out there.
Mhm.
And it's the way the person spoke. It's the way your brother told it. It's the way, of
Right.
course, the way I tell the story is
Right.
perfect and accurate. And my brother embellishes. No, he does embellish, but we always joke.
Well, he
about
has a different perspective.
He does.
And that's what I found. Another
He
thing I
does.
did that was very successful in getting people talking was to draw a floor plan of our house. And so I had my brother and I annotated that particular floor plan. Then I gave it to my aunt, who also grew up in the house, in the same house, and I had her annotated as well. And so there's this sometimes convergence and sometimes divergence of opinions and experiences that happened in the house.
Now people know that Jill is an architect. So of course floor plans play big into that. But it also, I'm not an architect, but I was trying to explain this funny kind of an apartment that my grandmother had on the west side of Lake Union. And it had a humongous walk-through closet and a back door and a front door to this apartment. But what my brother remembered was a radiator by a window in the living room because it burned him. I mean, it didn't burn him seriously, but it was hot. And so that's what he remembered. But when he remembered it, then I remembered, and it couldn't have been in the winter, would have killed this trailing house plant that sat on the radiator cabinet that was put up. And he's like, no, there was no radiator cabinet. Well, I'll bet you the radiator cabinet got installed over that metal radiator so that people like my brother wouldn't touch it and get burned. They'd only be in the housing of it, come up. So there was a whole narrative that came as a result of that outlining. I mean, and I literally drew in one of the little journals I do for my grandkids, in that go along with bits of ephemera and family, tiny family pieces. I drew that floor plan and shared it with him, and that's how that conversation started. So you just never know. He did not like the fact there were two ways to get from the front room of this apartment to the back where the bedroom was. One was through the dining room, which we were not allowed to go through on Sunday because Grandpa was setting the table. And we were running through, and little kids, and we might, The other way was through this humongous room-sized walk-in closet that had a door at the front and the back you could go through to the back area. It's a weird. You'd probably be intrigued by the design of it. I don't know, Jill. But
maybe it was the cold room.
No, it was an apartment. It was an apartment, and there was no other rod for hanging clothes, and above that were hat boxes and things. And it was very dark in there.
Yep.
And so that was different from the other kind of closet. You open the doors or you slide the door, and it was just as deep as your hanging clothes. It's very different. Okay. Hillary, you had a fireplace with the fire guard. Tell me about that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The first house my parents had, because we didn't actually live in a house initially, but when I was about 7, we moved to a house. And that's where my sisters grew up more. They were younger than me. And we had an open fire there, and that was the only real form of heating in the house. There was a separate boiler in the kitchen that would heat up the water and warm that through, but we had no heating upstairs in our rooms and things. It was just a case of that we had that one central thing. My son's grown up with central heating, with heating radiators in every room. But we didn't have it when I grew up.
Yeah,
my parents didn't have central heating until I left home and went to university. So
yeah, Grandma Myrtle's house in Puyallup on 2nd, across the road from a Piggly Wiggly kind of a store. I'm not sure it was the actual Piggly Wiggly, but it was like you described, Randy. They had a coal burning furnace downstairs, and Grandpa would stoke it up in the morning. And the heat, there was no fan to distribute the heat. There was a large grate in the floor, and it was made out of wood, not metal. And so the heat would come up through that. And my brother and I would wait until Grandpa had stoked up the fire, and then he and I would stand on this grate. And the grate was probably, well, of course I was little and everything seemed bigger then, but it was probably a foot deep and about maybe a yard wide in the back hallway. And that's the way that heat came up through the house. And I'd stand there in my, I wore Lanz, Lanz. That was the brand of a flannel nightgown. So it was full length. I'd stand over it and Mike would laugh at me. He'd have like his Superman pajamas and he'd stand next to me. But because of the heat rising, it made my nightgown billow out. He would tease me about my weight when I was a skinny little thing. Well, tall thing. I've always been tall, but anyway. Something about furnace here. We had a furnace in the house, but my parents had a cottage that was only heated by wood and coal. That's you, Ellen.
Yeah.
And Sherry's saying we had a wood burning stove that Dad stoked in the morning, and we rushed from the unheated upstairs to sit in front of the stove. It had an electric fan to share the heat. That was a big improvement when they figured out pushing the air. Let's see. I remember having to fill buckets of water when we thought the electricity was going to go off. After moving to the city, we no longer had to worry about the electric pump to the well. Yes, we're on well water here because we're in an island. There's no public water. Let's see. Who's this? Hi, Claire. Her husband, Les, grew up in a home built for World War II veterans, but the toilet was out back. And she saw that when she joined him in 1976. And some other comments here I missed. No street lights came on at dusk or shut off at daylight. Yeah. So that was the concept, Frank, is we had to be home before the street lights came on. And we lived in the suburbs. Yeah. My hubby grew up in the town of Des Moines, Iowa, and was kicked out of the house and had to be home. Yeah, there's that concept before the street lights came on as well. So did our lights go off in the middle of the night? No.
Ours did.
Yours did. So you were saving power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around midnight to, I think, 2 a.m., they simply switched off all the light on the streets. If you need to go out at that time, it was very spooky.
I'll bet.
Especially in a rural little village in Eastern Germany.
Oh my gosh. That reminds me too, we didn't have television production going on 24/7, 365 with and we only had 3 stations. But at was it 11 or was it midnight? Oh no, they'd say it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? And then they'd have this screen that was white with black lines, and it was a funny sound, and then that was how they were off the air until the next morning. So that was a very different thing. Let's see. Street lights came on. Common thing. No, I didn't have any recollection. Well, I was never up at 1 a.m. to know if our lights went off. And then I wanted to get this. I forgot to mention weare.xyz or Z, as you all say, as a place to put things publicly. And I put up forever.com. But back to topics. So Frank, what is the one or two thing? What are the one or two things that you know would have to be in your personal history? If you start writing now, you're going to have a voluminous personal history because you're the youngster here.
I think so. Yeah. Um, I would start with my childhood in Eastern Germany because no one, nowadays no one can even imagine how it was back then. Then I would switch over to the history of the house where I grew up because this house was very important to my family since it was a safe haven for all of them who fled over from Eastern Russia.
Okay. Yeah. So the house speaks. The
Yeah.
house, if those
If
walls could talk.
if these walls could talk, it would tell all over our family because the second owner was actually a relative from me.
That's amazing. You know, when we think about walls coming down, we knew about that there were families over in Eastern Germany, and we knew that there was oppression, but that's just a word.
Yep.
And yeah, so to hear firsthand, that's got to be out there. It's got to be out there. And you may not have the photos because I don't know if you had film technology or if that was a priority. I
Not
have,
really.
yeah, I didn't, I think food was a priority and keeping warm was a priority. And I'm putting it sweetly. I can't even begin to imagine what it was like on the other side of that wall. And it's just amazing what governments decide to do. Believe me. Jeez. Because we're just all people in families. And what we do here, the work that we do here is to preserve those stories. Randy, you excel in using AI to help you as you call it your ghostwriter. If you have one thing you would like to have be part of your personal history, and you tell me what it would be. I'm trying not to put words in your mouth.
I think two things. One, my work history, in addition to what everybody else has said, but work history. What did you do in your life? My grandsons ask me all the time. Okay, and consequently, I've done some things like a Storyworth book, 200 pages, cost $99. I got it as a Christmas gift, and I have one, and my daughters each have one. And then, well, first the work history, second the stories of my life before I got married, and early marriage even. And so I've been using AI to do that. And I have, I don't know, 10 or 12 now stories from the Watchful House on 30th Street that I wrote just snippets, short sentences, maybe a paragraph sometimes, about specific memories from that happen in the house or out of the house. And I ask AI to tell the story from the house's point of view. What did the house see? And so it's not just about one snippet now. It's about how maybe what I did and how the family reacted to it. My brothers, my mother, my father. And so I do those every Monday. Today's is I asked the Watchful House, what was the house doing at nighttime? And it told me. I just published it an hour ago.
What did it tell you? What did AI help you say about your house overnight? What it did?
Well, it said there's all these sounds in the house because it's made of wood in our case. It has pipes. It has all kinds of things that expand and contract with heat or use or whatever. So it has those sounds, and so as the outdoors cools, the house contracts a bit, and sometimes there's sounds. There's sounds of people moving. My father watched TV late. The house knew that because I told it. My young brother would in the 50s would cry out at night, and my mother would get up, and the house heard that, and it would sense the wind, and it knew about the dogs and the cats in the neighborhood, and so all these things happen. It also highlights, and this is a future Watchful House story, my DXing hobby. And so it noted that I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and listen to the radio for a couple hours, trying to find distant radio stations. So, and also, thirdly, maybe, my hobbies. What did I do? I did DXing, and I now do genealogy. So all of that is in my book, in more detail. But I'm doing the Watchful House. I'm putting on each blog post I do about that, and each AI blog post I do about biographies and stories, like memoirs, whatever. I do one a day in total, and all that is on Substack, and it's on my blog. And so my plan is to create just small little ebooks that I can talk about, say, my family, my father, biography, poems, maybe links to a song, definitely video overviews, which are on my YouTube channel now. And then distribute them to the family at least, and think about, maybe distributing them to Internet Archive. It's a good idea, or something like that. I have a Forever account, and they'll be there. But one thing that I have been working on, and I think what might help a lot of genealogy societies, is to have a writers group, or to have a family history. We're calling it the Family History Roundtable in Chula Vista. So I do a monthly Zoom meeting just on photos, writing, preserving, and sharing. Okay, and use AI to help me. What are the best practices for editing photos or writing a story, that type of thing? And so and AI is very good at this, and it saves me a lot of time having to look up 42 websites. And but I try to I'm trying to highlight what people have done, like Ellen has a great YouTube channel with excellent hints, excellent tips for sharing things and doing things. And there's a whole bunch of other people doing things like that too. So we're doing that once a month, and it's free for anybody to join us. We have 100 seats. We usually use 15 of them on Zoom. But if you want some ideas about it, and I have a handout. The last month's handout was 18 pages. So I'm not going to do that again. But
I'm not worthy.
Well, I have all these AI best practices for photos, especially, and then so that's what I'm doing to help my members and anybody else, and perhaps we get more members out of it. You never know.
You never know. You never know.
and get more ideas, because it's more than me. It's the group sharing, and people have great ideas. Just like everybody had great ideas today about how to do some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Marvelous.
Yeah, and we even taught Randy the concept of maybe put it over on the Internet Archive. Yes, he's worthy to. We are all worthy enough to do that, and that's exactly what Brewster Kahle wants. Kahle, the owner and founder and director and man about town at Internet Archive. All right, before we go, I do see your lightning round suggestion, Frank. Let me deal with this concept first. And it's Valerie's. Where? Oh, well, there's Tony. When I was a genealogist, I was vocal about big sites not encouraging online research articles such as blogs by providing a database linking to them, not copying them as searchable metadata. Oh, yes, we fought that battle with Ancestry because there's more than, and that was the big, powerful moment for Virginia bloggers to unite. Where is that comment? Oh, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. Not everything was rosy and rainbows and unicorns, as Valerie said, and like I was talking with Frank about. And some things are very personal. And like in my personal history, I had a not very nice mom, but a wonderful stepmother. But my mom did teach me about planting tulips. Wasn't a pleasant thing, but when the tulips came up the next summer, it was, or spring. And I'm going to let people draw their own conclusion about the only thing I tell you about my mom was her gardening. And I tell you a lot more about my stepmother, who was wonderful. And I had an extremely not very nice stepfather, but I had a pretty good dad. My parents were divorced. It is emotional to write about it. Now I'm a lot older than you are, Valerie, and I could write about it. In your case, to write about it, that was therapeutic. For me to write about it any time earlier than this, I wouldn't have shared it with anybody. But I've decided to let people draw their own conclusions about where do I put the focus when I talk about my family relationships. And it is important to tell the story. And in certain situations, I would share my story with one person, because I've always said if my one story in a private setting can help someone else and let them know you are okay, you're not going crazy, this is how it was, that I would never be so secretive that I wouldn't share it in unusual one-on-one situations. You can't write everything, so we need to record the standout moments. Yeah. Valerie's chosen not to use AI. That's okay. Some people are afraid of using AI. You were one of the last people to use a cell phone back when you thought you didn't need one. Now I consider it a security service for cases of emergency. Here, Randy has shared the link with the Family History Roundtable meeting, and third Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific. I think that's an open invitation. And Valerie, my daughters know the sad and ugly things about, because I taught them to have self-awareness and security, a sense of security, and to let them know they could tell me if something happened, but I kept them safe. So that's the extent, but it's not written. You're technical, not creative. Yeah, you're pretty good. You do pretty good work. Security needs have changed over time. Today's parents would never they'd never let my grandkids roam free by themselves. And you concur with what Randy said. Wow. All right. So, This is something Frank wanted to share for the lightning round. Let me bring it up. I am so pleased by this discussion. Let me share my screen. And you talk to me about this, Frank. Let me turn this off. There we go. What is this? What is this?
This is a project by the Olsen Archive,
Mm-hmm.
which is the International Center for Nazi Persecution.
Mm-hmm.
And they are now digitally
Yes, we get it.
doing digital archive stuff for the archives in the Ukraine. And they stumbled upon a huge collection of postcards from the then oppressed Ukraine. And as they already did with No Name Has to Be Forgotten, which was one of the projects and still is to this day,
Mm-hmm.
they want to give everyone a name, so no one
Yes.
is forgotten.
No
They
one.
have over
Yeah.
13,000 historical postcards from this era, and they now want the public, the normal guys, to simply help them out with indexing them.
Mm.
They have a special website which is linked somewhere in that article. I didn't find the link yet. Where you simply can enter the name of the sender, of the recipient, the stamp date, the village where it was sent and received, and
Mhm.
that's it. This is just the first step that they want to do now.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and they already talked about it, they will go over, check if everything is correct within an AI,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go over and transcribe every single of these letters with an
Mhm.
AI and with the helpers to control everything and try to find out if there are people still living where these letters were originally supposed to go to.
This is incredible. Let me give a more complete URL. Somehow I cut it off. Let's see if this is coming. That's better. Let me remove this one. I don't know.
Okay, this is quite interesting, Randy. The date on that postcard is his birth date.
It's Randy's birth date. Yes, by the way, it was Randy's birthday this past week.
Mm.
He's not getting older, he's getting better. That's interesting. Somebody's thinking of you, Randy, even in Ukrainian. I don't know. Well, this is a very interesting crowdsourcing project. I can't participate as I am limited in my language abilities, but
You don't have to read anything on that card. You don't have. You just have to see what's the name and how it's typed. That's
yeah,
all.
yeah. Oh, well, that wouldn't be too
It's
bad.
so easy. Everyone can do it. You
Yeah.
just have to. I literally took it today for 5 minutes. Almost, I think, 10 or 20 cards. It's
Wow.
very easy.
I think that is way cool. So, Jill, you just shared this with your friend. Thank you.
Yep.
Somewhere-
She has some level, excuse me, she has some level of Ukrainian speaking. So she actually can speak it.
Wow. And Maria, who does a lot of things in those countries where her husband's ancestors once lived. Yeah. This is going to be, yeah. All right. Honestly, I think that's a wonderful project. And I also think we've had a really good Mondays with Myrt today. It's been relaxed and honest and brainstorming, and it's all good. And we didn't have sound issues, and which is always nice. Yeah. I put in the word Storyworth. My Heritage, My Stories book. I think that went through. I'm really amazed at what the panelists bring to the table. You know, if I just had a show, I guess we're having sun again, Jill. Are you getting it down there? I mean, it's coming through the
No.
Venetian blinds and it's blinding me.
It's
You're not
obviously
getting it.
coming from the west.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's startling when this happens. You're getting the up to the minute latest weather reviews from the Pacific Northwesterners on the panel. But anyway,
We're always stunned when we see the sun
I know,
during
it's
this
like,
period of time.
yeah, the other day I had to like put books up there, tall books to cover it because it catches my eye when I'm doing this. All right, so what are we doing next? There is the book club, and we're taking a 45-minute break. Actually, the panelists and I only take about a half-hour break. And again, you'll need to go out. Where is the link to the actual event? Oh, well, you can find it over on my Substack post. Let me find that again. Genia Quilters, Genia Bloggers. Boy, there's a lot of stuff we're doing. Good heavens, here it is. Here's the Substack post. Don't panic. You don't have to have a Substack account to read that post. It's if you want to comment. But I would suggest that you get a Substack account. They're free. And because we're noticing that we're getting through to our followers, those of us who are content producers are getting through to our followers more readily without the incursions of advertising. And in my case, remember I told you that in the group Dear Myrtle over on Facebook, they wanted to give me a thing called Myrt bot, a Myrt bot for Myrtle. And I declined it. And now a month and a half later, suddenly I saw a post from Myrt bot in my group. Did you hear that? Anyway, we're not getting that over there on Substack. It's a lot safer. Okay, one more comment from the group. Yeah, my 2-minute warning did pretty well. We're only 2 minutes over time. Golly, thank you so much to everybody. I love the comments from the community of those of you who could watch live. Those of you who are watching the recording, this sounds much better than last time we met. And there's nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.